Good morning. The first generation Insignia was known as a large car from the outside, but cramped inside. However, it is pretty and, fortunately, durable in terms of bodywork because Opel did not allow itself to return to the inglorious times of the Vectras A and B or Astra F, thanks to which the car is well protected against rust. In cars without accidents, only the inner edges of the doors at the hinges can cause problems. Side members and sills? In well-maintained cars, they should be in very good condition. It is probably not without significance that the Insignia generally has a pretty decent paint job, although there are occasional paint quality mishaps, mainly on the bumpers. A frequently recurring problem is the boot lid lock contactor not working. As a result, the lid cannot be opened. However, those interested in buying a car with adaptive xenon AFL, adaptive forward lighting should be careful. It can fail not only in cars after accidents, but in some cases also in Insignias in perfect condition. This could still be bearable, but the costs of original headlights are unfortunately prohibitive. On the subject of lighting, there are also known cases of the electronics that control the automatic switching on and off of lights going crazy. The consequence of this is that the lights turn on by themselves, e.g. in the middle of the night, and the battery discharges. However, it seems that this is a relatively rare problem. The only thing is that similar circuses also occur with the participation of electric windows. The car is parked outside and it just started raining in the middle of the night. It would be stupid to suddenly open all the windows. In addition to the above issues, there are also reports of rotting air conditioning wiring harnesses in pre-facelift cars. A damaged harness can burn out the control panel and damage the air conditioning compressor. While the Insignia suspension is considered durable by most users, and even models with FlexRide variable shock absorbers generally run trouble-free, the brakes are often problematic. The Insignia had several brake sizes available. According to the information provided by the authorized service center, there are 4 options at the front. Discs can have a diameter of 296, 321, 337, or 355 millimeters. The last 2 options are reserved for the 2.8-volt 6 turbo and OPC versions, 2 at the rear. Solid discs 292 mm or ventilated 315 mm. Larger brakes were fitted as standard in more powerful versions, from 160 HP upwards, while a less efficient braking system is the domain of cars with lower power. It does not fully cope with the large curb weight of the Insignia, which often exceeds 1,600 kg. The effect is rapid wear of the brake pads and warping of the discs. This of course results in steering wheel wobble, but it turns out that it's not just the brakes that can cause this, although using branded replacements instead of original parts helps a lot, according to many people. Sometimes the drive shafts are responsible for the wobble, which in some cars are simply not properly balanced. The shafts don't usually need to be replaced, but sometimes they need to be rebalanced. Occasionally you can hear about faulty front wishbone bushes. The last recurring problem in this category is the rims and tires, which are often damaged, sometimes to such an extent that you have to buy new ones or a set of used ones in better condition. Interestingly, the problem concerns not only models with the largest 20-inch rims, but also cars with 17 or 18-inch wheels. It is difficult to treat this as a defect in the literal sense, but it certainly does not hurt to take a closer look at the wheels when buying a car. An Insignia with 20 inches and a bald tire requires a considerable financial outlay to start. The Opel Insignia A was offered with a range of engines, from simple, naturally aspirated 1.6 and 1.8 engines to more complex 2.8 volts 6 turbo or 2.0 CDTI diesels, also in bi-turbo version. Compared to the competition, the Insignia does not have to be too ashamed, which does not mean that there are no problems. In the case of petrol engines, the matter is quite simple. Most are worth recommending, although when choosing the right drive unit for our needs, we should remember about the considerable weight of the car. We should also take into account that the naturally aspirated 1.8 engine used in this model does not have valve hydraulics, so the installation of a gas system may be a bit controversial. The 140 horsepower 1.4 turbo engine definitely gets along better with LPG, and it is hard to find fault with anything, apart from the still too weak performance. It was also available with a factory gas installation. The 1.6 turbo engines are also not overly prone to failures. The biggest problems among petrol engines are caused in practice by the fuel-guzzling 2.8-volt 6 units, and they're not very durable chain timing drive. There are also many opinions that in terms of both durability and parts prices, the timing of the 2.0 turbo engine is not much better. There are problems with, among others, tensioners. Insignia is primarily diesel, mainly 2.0 CDTI in various power versions. The main problem of these units are the oil pump strainer seals, which wear out over time. As a result, this leads to a decrease in oil pressure and ultimately to damage to the bearings and engine seizure. For this reason, it is recommended to treat this seal as a strictly operational element and replace it, for example, every 50,000 kilometers. But be careful, you should avoid Chinese substitutes because they are of quite poor quality. Suitable seals are also produced, among others, in Poland, and these are much better. Interestingly, in the 2.0 CDTI biturbo, the gaskets mentioned seem to cause fewer problems. Some users suspect that this may be related to the different routing of the exhaust system components, farther from the oil line, thanks to which the system would work in more favorable conditions. However, this information is not confirmed. As in the aforementioned 2.8-volt 6 and 2.0T engines, also in the 2.0 CDTI, you should pay close attention to the timing drive. Depending on the car model, the manufacturer recommended replacement every 150,000 kilometers or 10 years, every 150,000 kilometers or 6 years, or finally, every 120,000 kilometers or 6 years. There are many known cases of timing belt breakage around these mileages, so in practice it may be a good idea to shorten the recommended interval, whatever it is. It should not be forgotten that in addition to the belt and water pump, the lower pulley should also be replaced, because its wedge becomes damaged over time. The common rail pump also sometimes threatens with failures. It happens that it causes fuel to leak into the engine compartment, usually onto the alternator, which of course then stops working. Unfortunately, there are known cases of fires caused by this. Leaks sometimes also occur in the intercooler pipe and the power steering system, the latter also in petrol engines. Surprisingly, it is relatively rare to hear about injector failures, although of course such cases do happen. Several different transmissions were used in the Opel Insignia. The legendary M32 manual transmission is the one that keeps owners and users awake at night. It was used in the 1.4T, 1.6, 1.6T, and 1.6 City turbo engines, as well as in the weaker 2.0 CDTI diesels. The gear is considered exceptionally poor, and rightly so. The range of possible failures is quite wide. Bearings, synchronizers, and selector can all fail. The least durable are the gears manufactured in 2010 to 2012. During that period, the manufacturer, Getrag, used less durable bearings from FAG and NGBC instead of previous Timken products. The most common symptoms of failure include noise, problems with engaging gears, or automatic movement of the gear shift rod when pressing or releasing the clutch pedal. The 6-speed automatic gearbox, which was produced by Aisin, also doesn't have many fans. This gearbox was particularly troublesome for owners of pre-facelift cars. There is information that its key elements were manufactured in China at that time. After their production was moved to Japan, reliability improved. However, the gearbox itself did not improve, the only advantage of which, in the opinion of many users, is that it changes gears by itself. However, it does so slowly, often pointlessly, and the sport mode has practically no major effect on it. The 4x4 drive used as an option in the Insignia is not particularly successful. It is a system based on Haldex, a solution associated as relatively failure-free. Except that in Opel, they somehow managed to magically make the drive on both axles fail. Haldex pumps and differentials fail. Compared to cars with 1.9 CDTI, 1.9 JTD, 1.9 JTDM engines, the dual-mass flywheel seems to have a shorter lifespan. Nevertheless, with rational use, results of around 200,000 kilometers are quite likely, so it's not that bad. Many of the faults listed above happen occasionally. There is a large group of people who like the Insignia and claim that while it may not be better than the competition, it is not worse either. Most people who drive this Opel agree on one thing: the Insignia does not tolerate a lack of a service regime. Ignoring service recommendations and lack of knowledge on how to properly service it is a bit like playing Russian roulette, except instead of one cartridge we put 5 into the revolver cylinder. The general rule is the same as everywhere. If you are interested in an Opel Insignia, buy something at the highest possible price point and from a reliable source. Buying a cheap car, or one with a service book eaten by a dog, will most likely backfire quickly, perhaps faster than you can read about potential failures, and stock up on a spare oil pump strainer gasket. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.
Camipro Website ist Katalog aller Automarken, Motoren, Getriebe, was bricht und bei welchem Kilometerstand. Welche Pakete können Ihre Tasche hart belasten? Dieses und vieles mehr über Autos erfahren Sie auf Camipro.